seen, oh, we've never seen this before. And I did ask the question, does this apply to the current RDCK rec facilities in our services in the sub-region? And I was assured that it did not. I would just like staff confirmation that, I guess, a question to staff, is this the case that this only applies to this new proposed project? So that's my first question. Is that correct? Could staff confirm that?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. These are guidelines specific to this project in Castlegar for the arena and walking track.
Okay, so my supplemental then is, my comment is, Chair, if that's okay,
Yeah, please go
I'm not going to, with that understanding, I just said at the rec commission meeting, it's almost like you need a workshop to understand these motions. What is this really all about? But I guess we'll see what happens with the project, because it is not, it's like area I is not included in the project. So I just am not going to say anything else. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Director Davidoff. Director Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. I found this report very interesting, and I really like the outcome and the logic behind, maintaining sort of public control of all the revenue streams, except taking advantage of a very prominent trend in society, and that's naming. So my question is, would we, after we go through this recommendation, have a direction to staff to ensure that Mr. Morrison is taking this into account when he's looking at our procurement policy, purchasing policy? Because we do speak in that policy to optimizing cost, quantity, timing, sustainability, which is pretty nebulous, or other values. And I think maybe this would speak to Director Davidoff's concern that it would be nice to see that here are the directions we would move in terms of when we're procuring something like a major construction contract, and where we would not want to tread in sort of back and forth negotiation. So hopefully Mr. Morrison might would take this into account as he goes through that policy review.
Yeah, through the chair, and I spoke to Jen about that this morning. That's something that we definitely will consider when we're looking at it.
Perfect. Okay, supplemental?
No, it's good.
Okay, Director McFadden.
Yeah, I just realized like through these motions, I thought giving the board context to why they're here, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish might help. The goal is to try and figure out to still have public process where it is fair and equitable to any proponent that might want to apply for a project, but also have a middle ground where we're looking and saying, okay, but if community wants to be a part of something that we're doing, what are we willing to allow and what are we not? That if they're bringing value to the table and not charging us for that value, how do we do that? And this hasn't really been done at the RDCK. It is done other places. And so a lot of these motions are really to try and do that and saying, hey, when we go out and we're asking you to come and tell us what you can do, here's our objectives. Here's the things we're willing to move on. If you want to do naming rights and you're going to give us how many millions of dollars for having those naming rights off the project, great. If you want to do this, if you want to do that, we're really trying to put a process together that isn't so boxed, but allows community to come to us and say, here's what we're willing to put in if you're willing to, but still have it very open and transparent and allow there to be fair process. So that's what all these motions are intending to do. And hopefully, which we've learned working with community services, that this we know is very new, but hopefully can be a starting place of maybe as government, we might have a different way to do procurement, a different way to do projects that allows community to be better partners with us in it than our really tight boxes that sometimes we do those projects within. So that's the goal we're trying to get here with the understanding, Director Jackman, what you're saying is, how do we then take this and maybe distill it down to other things and other policies that need to be integrated in, but not integrating them in before we know whether or not it works. That's the goal.
Okay, thanks. Perfect. Thank you for the context. No other speakers? All in favor? It's all. Yeah. Yep. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Good morning, Director Webb. I believe, Director McFadden, you could move the rest as a block.
Okay.
if you want to read all of it.
Nope, it's fine. The rest of them, there's nothing else in the rest of them that would be excluded, no? Okay, then I'll move 2 through 6 as a block as written in our agenda.
Thank you very much. Second, Dr. Hanegraaff. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. Those several motions paid. Okay, West Transit Services Committee, I believe that is you as well, Dr. McFadden.
Yeah, I'll move that the board direct staff to submit an application to the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service Fund for up to $20,000 in consultant support to undertake the rural transit operating model feasibility assessment.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, several people. Director Gavin.
Yeah, thank you. I brought this up a little bit at the meeting, and I think this is an interesting opportunity because the old model of we buy a bus and then figure out how to use the bus is extremely awkward because the bus isn't run every day on the same route. So we end up returning a bus from far-flung corners of our district to some central location to run for a couple days. Then that operator has to get up and go all the way to the park end. So we have societies that I hope will be a focus on this who either have or in progress in obtaining a commercial route license. And some of these societies have fully certified vehicles, they have insurance, they have appropriate operator licensing. And they're able to park these vehicles, vans essentially, in the far-flung corner. So they're not driving out of an urban center and taking half of the day getting the vehicle back to where it has to park. And vehicles are not $250,000 plus. So I'm just hoping staff will put a focus on those existing societies and evolving societies because they are our best opportunity to provide intermittent transit a couple days a week to these corners. And not start with looking at the old model of, oh, we have a bus that's available one day. How can we possibly get it out there and back 2 round trips a day? That is not a model which has worked historically.
Okay. I'm not sure if Tom has any comment, but. Okay. Nothing. Okay. Great noted. And I appreciate Tom, I appreciate the looking at different models, particularly for the rural areas, especially Edgewood, McFassett, etc. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Resource is removed. And
Creston Valley Services.
oops, oh, I'm sorry, it's over on the page right there. Okay, Creston Valley. Director Dumas.
Yes. The resolution is that the board directs staff to issue an expression of interest to identify external service providers for economic development activities in the Creston Valley based upon the proposed level of service for economic development outlined in the committee report dated March 5th, 2026, and further, that after the evaluation of the submissions, staff return to the Creston Valley Services Committee for consideration.
Thank you. Second, any discussion? Director Jane? Just a second part, okay. Okay, participants only waited unless there is discussion. All in favor? Participants only, but it looked like it was here.
Chris.
All right, that was four no. All right, so nothing from joint resource, membership and appointments, committee and commission, Village of New Denver. Director Casey, would you like to make this motion? The 4.2.1. We can't hear you, or I can get somebody else.
I just having trouble.
You had it, you lost it.
Some delay.
Director Papa, do you want to make?
I would move that motion.
Okay. Director Casey, you want to give me a hand for a second? Or anybody second?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Ready Grant Selection Committee appointment.
So I'll move the
Go ahead.
motion that the board appoint the following individuals to ready local area selection committees for Castle and Area B, Dana and Fernia, and for a 1-year period, and for Area C, Ashley Chinna and Karen Peck, both for 1-year terms.
Okay, thank you, Director Hewitt. Director Peck, I would ask you to second that, but your name's on there, so I will ask somebody else to second that. Director Tierney, thank you very much. Any discussion? Any, all in favor? Any opposed? Carries?
So Chair, point of order.
Yes.
Yeah, if Director Casely has lost communication, I think our policy is that we try and ensure that a director that loses communication has it. So I don't know, like when you said to direct, oh, here,
I got it back now, sorry.
got it. Okay, just wanted to double check, Chair. You know our policy, right? Thank you.
Thanks for that, Director David. And glad to have you back, Director Casey. We are on 4.2.3, Nelson Public Library Board Director Newell.
That the board appoint the following person as electoral area F representative to the Nelson Public Library Board for a term to end December 31st. 2027. Gordon Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Director Newell. Second, thank you, Director Hanegraaff, and thank you for getting this on there, a late item. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries. And we are on to bylaws. So we are on adoption of 3035. So any discussion prior to moving adoption?
I will move adoption.
Okay, thank you, Director Popoff. Adoption is moved. Second, Director Newell. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. That was an all vote. And
Oh, they didn't hear you that. Chair, just if I could, yes, 5.2 should have a motion to adopt.
so yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, okay. Motion to adopt for Kootenay Lake West Transit.
Number 3036, which is in your agenda package on East Drive. As an attachment.
So there's no recommendation on the agenda, but we will just move adoption. Recommendation.
I know you do need Nelson's sign off because you haven't gotten it yet.
Is that, or that doesn't impact this one?
Respectfully through the chair, no, it's not. We have consent from 88% of the participants at this point. We only need 66% in order to receive the adoption of bylaw. So it's ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Anybody in that service would like to move that? Thank you, Director Weatherhead. Second. No discussion. We're on adoption. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And 5.3, Director Jackson, would you like to speak for that one? The mates?
No, it's good. It's on the agenda now. Yeah, I'm gonna go to Director Newell.
If I may, that the RDCK zoning amendment bylaw 3040. Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
2025 being a bylaw to amend the RDCK zoning bylaw 1675 2004 is hereby adopted and further, etc.
Thanks for the motion. Second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are on adoption of bylaw 3053. Who would like to make that one? Director Weatherhead?
That the Regional District Central Kootenay zoning amendment bylaw number 3053, 2025 being a bylaw to amend the Regional District Central Kootenay zoning bylaw 1675, 2004 is hereby adopted and further and so forth.
Thank you very much. Multiple seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And Director Cunningham, yeah, go ahead, please.
I'll move the recommendation. The electoral area G land use amendment bylaw number 3059 being valid to amend the area G land use bylaw 2452 is hereby adopted. Chair and corporate officer authorized to sign.
Thank you, Director. I see a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we have back to you, Director McKillop.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? It's written. Thank you, Director Hanegraaff. Any discussion on Bill DeSalmo fire truck security issuing? No discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 5.7 bylaw 37.4 rural mobility community advisory committee amendment. Who is the chair of that, please?
Kelly, Director Dannenberg.
Okay, Director Peck, would you like to make this motion?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
As written, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So we'll just do first, second, and third reading, and we have a second.
Second, the question,
Please go ahead.
nobody online. So this bylaw, this committee's been active for some time, but this is to try and formalize appointments in the same form as all of our other committees. The bylaw wording is that the bylaw will expire 2 years after the date it is adopted by the board. But my questions around this is, my understanding, there's key dates of 17th of April 2027. Does the funding expire on that date? And should this bylaw expire on the same date, just short of 2 years? Well, you're in change.
The chair, Alex is here, you could probably answer that.
Yeah.
Through the chair, the bylaw does expire at that date.
17th of April 2027.
Yeah.
The bylaw clause under point 3 says this bylaw, this bylaw will expire 2 years after the date it is adopted by the board. So we can't, if we do 3 readings, we adopt, we can't amend it unless we amend that right here and now. The expiry time right now, it's worded as 2 years from today, if we adopt it today. Should it state it expires 17th of April 2027?
Yeah, respectfully through the chair, the bylaw was already adopted and we're amending it for a clause that was not included.
But this clause should be amended, is what I'm saying. And so should the appointment date should expire. Not the 2-year term for the appointments, which are coming soon, but those appointments should also expire 17th of April 2027.
So through the chair, you'd like the bylaw now amended to extend the 2-year period, because the 2-year period stays, it's not being amended. It was in the original bylaw that was adopted previously. We're only amending the membership piece. So the original clause of the 2 years still sits with the original timeline of the 2 years, because that clause is not being amended.
So if I might share, thanks. So that takes care of the first one. But then the 6.4 on the term of appointments, that reads 2 years. So the term of appointment that we'll get to is the third recommendation to change that term of appointment. Okay, so we don't need to change the 2-year clause either, because it is tied to the original bylaw adoption back in April. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I didn't do my homework.
Okay, glad we got that clarified. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that's the recommendation number 1. Number 2, Director Peck, would you like to move adoption of the bylaw? Okay, thank you. Second for adoption. Thank you, Director McFadden. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And then Director Peck, would you like to move the third recommendation, which is the committee appointments?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second here.
Second, and a question.
Please go ahead.
Very much. So I'm assuming we have minimum 6 members. There's a dozen names here. They're existing participating members, but there are sort of priorities identified. So, and I guess Alex is still in the room. As a minimum, is there a representative for the existing transportation oriented societies among this dozen names? Because otherwise it's a full slate and you wouldn't be able to take anyone else on for the remainder of the effectiveness of this entire process.
Go ahead.
Respectfully through the chair, there's no maximum number of participants and members. So we've been working with a number of people over the year, and those are the folks on the list. But we definitely welcome participation by other folks, and we have been in contact with East Shore Transportation Society and South Peak, right? Many other such societies.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Alex. Any other?
Thank you, through the chair to Alex. So can members enter into this at any time now?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, yes. Yeah, if there's interested residents or organizations, we definitely welcome them.
Director Peck.
Hi, yeah, I did have some notes on this one, about possibly, deferring just to get more public. I talked to, sorry, I talked to Kelly about this one and now I'm feeling like I need to backtrack a bit. Just that we need a little bit more information and to, questions around, you know, where this list came from and if there's enough representation. Can you help me a little?
Good question. Director Beckman has something.
Yeah, I was part of that conversation. The one question was, is this a good time to do a public outreach again? Because there's no entities, but to go in the newspapers and say, this is something that's only going on for another year and change. And if you have something to contribute, speak up now, let Alex know, you know, give a contact. So that can be done in our local newspapers. We haul, you know, with weeklies in most areas. Just as a time to do the outreach.
Do you have a supplemental question, Director Peck, or is that satisfy the fact that we have,
Yeah.
we can continuously appoint people? Is that all right? Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. What time is it? Yes, Mr. Director. Mills.
Are we moving on to item 5.8? I'll take your job away.
That would be the idea, yeah.
And could you help me, point of question?
Sure.
How will sorry, I'm scrolling here and
6.4.3.
yeah, how will that be if we pass this and then don't pass the next one? How will that be dealt with?
Good question.
I wonder, I'd like to move a reordering of the agenda at late notice to have 6.4.3 dealt with now. Prior to that, I just wonder if that's.
Sure, can we do it?
Yeah, you could move a motion to address 6.4.3 now.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so let's skip a couple pages. And we will go to 6.4.3 first. So for information, the organizational review, and I believe Director Schmenk, you were going to make the motion. Director Graham asked me that you would make the motion for the 6.4.3.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, read it or?
Oh, no, you, as written is fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
Great, it's great.
So the motion is to the board direct the removal of phase 2 organizational review budget of 100,000 and contracts and services S100 from the draft financial plan. Second. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll get a list. Page and Newell.
I think the big things for Nelson, for us, we did have some discussion around this, is that expectation that in midterm, in the next term, that this would be coming back. That was discussion that was around this table, that we're saying no to this year. We're saying, let's have time to implement some of the recommendations in the first phase before we dive in deeper. That was an expectation that we have. And then I have a second, but I see Stuart's ready to respond.
Yeah, through the chair, you know, we've heard more and more at this table that the board likes to see plans to spend funds if we're going to tax for it, that there's a map for that. And we didn't feel that with the tight timeline leading up to budget with the org review, that we had a way to put together a roadmap that would say, this is how we're planning on either using a temporary staff member or consultants to get this done in 2026. So as you see, the report that Connie prepared, it's more about what can we tackle internally? How can we improve things with the capacity that we have? And then look to 2027 to say, here's how we might spend funds outside that. And that's why we're asking for it. We don't want to ask for something that we don't know how we're going to spend.
100%. So within the context of the 5-year plan, do we anticipate these funds in 2027, 2028? Even though the direction seems clear that this will come back in a future year.
Yeah, through the chair, if Connie wants to speak, did you catch that enough, Connie, to speak to it?
Yeah, I think so. So through the chair,
If we determine that we need to allocate some funds, we'll come to the board at the end of the year. It has not been predetermined that we're gonna require those funds in the coming years. We just have to rethink how we're going to approach it.
Okay, and supplemental, if I may, please, before we go on. Another big piece that I think for work that we can accomplish, there's a number of recommendations that speak to the governance between board and staff and prioritization setting and how we interact in terms of providing direction as individuals and as a body. And so one of the things I hope we can kind of tackle in the near term in 2026 and 2027 is some of those workshopping pieces, some of those learning opportunities, especially for whatever the next group of people around this table is. It's just taking that board level educational pieces that were identified so that we can be more effective in the next iteration of the board. And so that's just a comment. And maybe Connie, if there's anything to provide or.
So through the chair, nothing at this point, but it has been a big part of our thinking about deferring any moving on to our next phase was making sure that we have all of those pieces covered and that is our focus for 2026. So that'll be top of mind as we're making a plan, and that can come to the board through Stuart once any plans have been made with respect to how we engage the board on some of those items.
Well, and how the board thinks about itself when it's creating initiatives.
Yeah, and through the chair, if I could, I've actually had a discussion with director over the last couple of days regarding board training, how we're going to approach the election and any changeover and different things we could bring into the mix to try to improve on what we did last time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Director Page. Director Newell.
Yeah, thank you. Upon reflection and at late notice, and looking at number 7, for instance, in the are they recommendations? The phase 1 recommendations. There were a few of them that I thought would, like, we have momentum. What I've witnessed is that a new board takes 2 years. Well, actually, people say I'm new at this into the 4th year here. No disrespect, because I did it myself. Hey, I'm new here, type of thing. And so 1 year delay is not going to be a 1 year delay. I think that so I'm speaking in opposition of delaying it. That's to predicate it. And I know we all are very conscious of the tax burden, but we have a board that's experienced, and today no one has said I'm new at this. So we all are starting to feel pretty good at it. So I think we shouldn't delay this. I think there was momentum. I think senior staff have taken the first set of recommendations, said we can work on this internally. But I think, one of the key components being that our organization as it stands right now, from the first report said that we're focused right through the CEO. We're a CEO organization. No disrespect, we got a great CEO, but we need to find a different way of spreading that governance model out. And I think with the momentum, it's a mistake to pause that process over $100,000, which is a lot of money. But I think that's the wrong motivation to say we shouldn't continue on with it. I think if we had better motivation that I didn't really hear, I mean, I know there's consolidation and maybe we can do stuff internally to guide the next phase. But I think the consultants were ready to take the next phase on, because they were saying, you guys, you have a governance issue. And we have people here that have been around the table that could help with the next step. So I'm going to speak in opposition of removing it from the financial plan.
Okay, thanks for your thoughtful comments, Director Newell. I think Stuart wants to.
Yeah, through the chair. Well, I'm not one to push back against the board wanting to provide us resources to do stuff. Speaking to your comment about delay, Director Newell, I think that if the board authorized us to do this, by the time we scoped it out and got an RFP out, I don't know if this board would be looking at that report by the time it was received here.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it might be better, if you're looking to keep things moving, that depending on what happens with this motion, if you do determine to remove it from the financial plan, that there's a follow-up motion to direct staff to prepare a work plan and a budget and bring that back to this board before the election. For phase two.
There you go.
I'll second that.
There's no, yeah,
Thanks.
there's no motion, sir.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, I'll come back to you after the,
No, that's fine.
okay, and we have Director Jackman.
Yeah, thanks. I understand everyone has a little different perspective. I don't think we're delaying anything. One, just what Stuart just said, there's natural timing or rhythm to getting stuff started and done well. Do you want to recap the speakers?
No, go.
Yeah. The first report stated some of the obvious that I don't think has surprised to any of our senior management. And it's a process that's been underway, especially if you flag the project management and procurement. I think our senior staff have been progressively moving in the right direction. And I think that they don't need external help for the new year. They know what they're doing. They still have changes under emergency services they're doing. Project management team is stronger and more active than I've ever seen it before. The asset management process, even though we have a gap in staffing there, which they'll fill, that is going to help every department. I don't see a delay. I think I see a fairly active evolution of our senior management team. I think I've seen it for most of the years I've been sitting here. So there's no delay. I think it's just time for staff to continue doing what they're doing, plan properly what they would think they want external eyes on, and it probably won't be the full scope of what was discussed previously, and move on from there. So I think this is perfectly the right thing to do. And as for future, S100 budgets, we're seeing an $800,000 projected lift next year in taxation, mostly because we're burning up almost $700,000 operating surplus this year. So where the $100,000 go to, with respect to the taxpayers, that is the least of their concerns. They want an efficient organization. We staff will recommend incrementally, maybe they want 50,000 next time. But by the time we get there, maybe we'll see some of the other internal costs being offset by the efficiencies we're looking for by changing who does what when, by using IT. So I'm not worried. This is not a delay. This is just the internal process continuing in the way it should, evolving with who's doing what when to be more efficient. I'm good with it.
Thanks, Director Jackman. Director Hanegraaff.
Yeah, so I'm getting more comfortable with this than I was to begin with, and part of my concern is the motion reads the removal of phase two organizational review. And if that's just reading it on the face of it, that's what it says, to remove the phase two organizational review, which caused me some very serious concerns, because I do believe that change is needed, that phase two needs to happen. And I guess my concern would be that by removing this from the budget, it's out of sight, out of mind, and gets buried and forgotten, which I think would make phase one a waste of time and money, and really bring some deep concerns about how we move forward, because we're not doing well. That much is clear. And so if there's some assurance that the present day removal of this from the budget does not mean that phase two vanishes, never to be seen again, I'd be okay with that. But the removal piece was a big concern for me and seemed incredibly short-sighted. It felt like it was a pencil sharpening exercise to reduce requisition. And as much as I don't like to see taxation go up either, sometimes you have to spend money to be more efficient in how you operate, and this would be one of those times.
Thanks, Director. Yeah, just a suggestion from Director Jackman that we change the friendly amendment to the motion, just remove it from the 2026 financial plan, not 26 to 30. If you would be,
yeah,
well, if you'd like to make it that
I'm
friendly.
pretty friendly, yeah.
I would accept that as a friendly.
Okay, and
Thank you.
okay, great. Kristen, would you? Okay, great.
You want to list names?
Yes, we've got Director Davidoff, Director Popoff, Director McFadden, Director Cunningham.
Sure.
Director Dave. Oh, sorry, Connie, you wanted to speak to that?
Through the chair, I just want to comment that I'm in violent agreement. Could probably spend a lot of time about how important this is. But I noted, and it was a driver that I moved forward, not necessarily a pencil pushing exercise. I want to make that clear. It was from the comments at this table about having a report that's important, that's bringing forward important things, and we need to make sure that we are not just moving it aside. And that meant that we need to focus on some of these really critical front items to make sure that we are moving forward, that we're moving in step, that we're ready for the next phase, that we're not jumping ahead and missing some of the critical pieces that we have to actually address before we can address some of the issues at that next phase 2 level.
Thanks, Connie. And I would just say that I think if there is continuity on this board through the next term, and I know that, then I think this will have momentum regardless. And I know the executive, we will keep pushing because obviously there is a demand for this to happen. So, sorry, Director David, let's go to you, please.
Yeah, no worries, Chair. Yeah, I had concerns about this. And I was one of the directors that did contact the CAO because I'm reading this motion and I get it that the way it was worded, and I like the suggested friendly amendment to remove it from this budget. But my understanding of it and the way it was explained to me is that we're not ready to assign the dollar value to the next phase of work. And until we internally figure out exactly what we need, what we can do internally, and then what we need consultants to help us with, we will arrive at a number for the next phase. But at this time, for this budget, the $100,000 number was not kind of a rock solid figure. So I really appreciate the conversation. It has really helped. I think the motion to just, if it's a friendly amendment for all of us, that we just remove it from this year's budget, knowing full well with everything that has been said, we need to keep working on this, and there is a phase 2. We're not abandoning phase 2 by removing it from this budget, and we will know better for the next year's budget what this number should be. So through the chair to the CAO, am I reading this correctly? Are my comments accurate?
Yeah, the chair believes so.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Director David. That was really well encapsulated the way you put it. Director Hopper.
Having listened to the debate here back and forth, and I'd like to move the friendly amendment. If I have a second, I can speak to it. Or has Director Hannigan?
I think we're already
We're
it's already taken care of. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll speak to it. It's a good idea to basically defer this for 1 year. And I believe our Connie spoke to it, that we should take a look internally what we can do before we go and hire a contractor to come in to take a better look at it. I think it's a good suggestion and something that I would support. There's stuff that we can do in there. There were suggestions before a few years ago by directors, how we can look at overloading our CAO. And we might take a second look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Poffo. Director McFadden.
Yes, so through the chair to staff and the board, I guess my concern is not having anything in there for resources at all, even if we're not clear what they're used for yet. I have a concern with that because I think part of the report and part of an organizational review is that we don't know what our blind spots are until they're blind spots. Like that's why they're called blind spots, right? And so not having an external ability to look externally and have someone continue on that journey. I have concern of whether or not we'll miss something along the way. So I'll give you a few examples, like whether or not all of a sudden you go down this and you're like, oh, you know what would be really helpful is coaching for our CAO to say, okay, here's how you move the needle from decentralizing so many decisions going through you. Here's how you do that. Or whether or not it's for staff training on here's how shared responsibility, here's how we can move some of these things, whether or not it's board training, you know, bringing someone in to train the board, all of that takes money. So it's not a consultant doing phase 2, but it is money that needs to be invested into implementing phase 1. And so my concern is to go a whole year without having anything in our budget to address some of that brings some external voice in. We're only looking at internal voices. And that's part of the problem that came up in organizational review in phase one, is that we have some blind spots that need to be moved the needle. And so that is my only concern. I understand that this board likes to know exactly dollars and cents of where money's being spent, but I wonder if there's a way that we can have a little trust with our staff and say, maybe it's worth putting a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 into our budget to say, along that way, we're giving you resources that when they come up, you have some ways to actually start to move the needle before you have a full out plan that knows exactly what you're doing, knows exactly how we're going into phase two. Otherwise, it becomes a really long journey to change anything. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's where my mind goes, is not having any resources for you guys as staff to implement some of this that I know will take money, or at least if you're doing it well, it should take some money to come up with an action plan of how do we move these things, how do we do those things, what kind of coaching do we need, what kind of training do we need. All of that should be looking at someone external that's coming in that has specific wisdom and knowledge in the areas that we're looking for. So we can't expect that to all come from who we have here, although there is great intelligent people here. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't know where we land with that. That's my concern. I'm not giving you guys as staff any resources to move the needle.
Thank you. If this motion succeeds as written, would you like to make a follow-up motion?
I got it, yeah, probably something, but I'd love to hear from staff on their thoughts on it first, if that were possible.
For the chair, and I'll let Connie speak to it as well, because we have talked about how this is going to be resourced. And I think from the training perspective, we do have staff training budgets that, you know, we don't know exactly what everybody's going to be taking on January 15th of every year. There's a few mandatory conferences, there's professional development, all that stuff, but we do leave room for leadership training and things that are outside of that core training that someone would do. So I think that from a training perspective, if there was something that happened quickly enough before this year was over, that we'd have the resources to be able to allocate training dollars there. From the board's perspective, yes, it's a little bit less broad. We do allocate board training, but usually it's something that we've planned and it's specific. So if something came up there, again, would the board want to do something with this group, or is at this point with the election coming up, is it something that we want to wait and we're looking at a 2027 budget allocation for that? So that's where I'd sit there. I'd let Connie speak to the resourcing internally for the actual work that's trying to get done between now and the determination on what phase two is going to look like from a scope perspective.
So through the chair, we have had some discussion about this at the SMT. I've had some discussion about this with my team. I think we're resourced to start to develop the plan. And I think the critical thing is that for those pieces that I've identified that we can move along, we are resourced to have to move those along. We are resourced for some of the external advice that we might need to get, including legal advice on some of those items that we're going to move forward. That's all part of what is considered. I'm not looking at this as something we're pushing out a year, to be clear. I'm looking at this as something that in fall we come back, this is where we are, this is what our plan is to move forward. I think I spoke to that in the report that will come back with an update on where we are with these phase one items. And my intention, my hope is that at that point we can start moving forward so that we're ready to pull the trigger going into the new budget year. So I'm not looking at this as something that's not resourced. It is something that is well resourced within our team in HR and within the SMT for the items that we need to move forward. And then we will have an opportunity to develop a plan without looking at some of those specific items necessarily yet, but a plan for moving some of those things along as we sort of transition into phase two, and that'll come up in the fall. A big part of it is how much can we do now? And to your point, sure, if we had a lot of resources, we could bring people in, but that takes a lot of work as well. And managing those resources as they come in so that the contractors can be effective and efficient in the work that they're doing with us. I will speak to the phase one report. It actually put a lot in our lap that still requires work. From their perspective, these are low-hanging fruit items that we can accomplish, but it still requires work to move it forward. We need to take the time to move that forward, and I think we're resourced well enough to start moving that forward and to come back, in a few months' time. Now we're already in March with a plan for the next phase.
Director McFadden, are you satisfied?
Yeah.
Those answers, okay. Director Cunningham.
No, thank you, yeah. I'm a little bit confused. I thought maybe I can be corrected. I thought that when we were, with regards to the previous item, that we had already, the previous item, 100,000 was already removed from there with the expectation that it would be removed here. Did I read that correctly?
The draft financial plan does
Yeah.
not include this 100,000, but because this motion was referred from last month, we are going through the formality of making that motion that was referred.
Okay.
But
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, because we seem to be going up and down about 100,000, I was just wondering. And also my second question with regards to the former, and I'm sorry about that. Somebody mentioned surplus, do we still have any surplus left? Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, not unallocated surplus. It's either been allocated to projects in 2026 or it's been used to offset taxation.
Very good, thank you.
okay, thank you, Director. We have Director Brotherhill for the first time.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to, through the chair, speak to in favor of this with the friendly amendment in place, which I was happy to hear because I really did truly feel this report spelled out that roadmap very, very well. And I really, I do have, you know, a lot of faith in our corporate staff to work on this for this year and grab that low hanging fruit and figure themselves out prior to then pulling in a consultant, because maybe the consultant in the end won't cost $100,000. Who knows?
Okay, thank you, Director Brotherhill. And for the second time, Director David on, please.
Yeah, again, just for clarification, sometimes it's just better to make these motions and second them so that we know what we're dealing with, because right now we're having this nebulous conversation. So I understand this is a friendly, but I will move to formalize this motion if there's a seconder, so it's not a friendly, and I'd like to speak to this once it's formally moved.
The 26.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is formally captured that we're
Okay.
only removing it from 2026.
Okay, so then I have a supplement, my last comment, if that's okay, Chair?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard at this table in a very, very long time, I don't think I've ever heard staff saying, we don't need to spend this money, and then we're trying to find a way to spend money. Like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. And the key thing is when the CAO, our HR, the people that are intimately involved in this review process are saying, hey, board, we don't need to spend this money right now. We don't even know how much money we need to spend. And then we have politicians saying, let's spend some money. Like, I just can't believe what I'm hearing. So I just thought I'd share that. And I understand Director Cunningham's confusion, because I'm sure after 40 years, or however long he's been on the board, he's never heard this either. So just thought I'd share that out there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director David, for the context. Okay, we have no more speakers. I think if I can just summarize, to Director, your point 20 minutes ago, I don't think we're losing momentum. I think that we're in a way where we don't want to overdo it, because we want staff to give staff the space to take the low hanging fruit, as they said from the phase 1 report. But anyway, no other speakers. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Yeah, motion carries.
Chair,
Yes.
just because we're going through a term and we have no guarantee that everybody is around this table, will be around this table in the future, I would like to move a motion to formalize that this come back in the 2027 budget, if I may.
How would you like that worded?
That the board directs staff to develop a work plan and budget from contracted services and S100 general administration for phase 2 organizational review and report back to the board for the 2027-2031 budget.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Does everybody understand what the motion is? Does anybody need it written down?
Question through the chair, which board?
That'll be
Would this board like to see that presented
It should be for the next.
for the next board?
I'm bringing this up because I'm worried about what happens on the other side of the transition. I want to formalize the intent of this board that we just spoke to, that this come back. And so that when that comes back, there's a motion here. It says the board wanted you to see this and capture this, and it's not just the effervescence of this room today.
Okay.
Chair, point of order.
Director Davidoff, yes.
Yeah, I don't think we can bind a future board. I'd like an answer on this legally through our CAO or Mr. Morrison. we're trying to, with this, we're trying to bind a future board on what they will do on a budget in 2020, from 2027 to 2031. I think this motion is out of order, but I need clarity on that.
Go ahead, Stuart.
So through the chair, I don't think it binds the board at all. This is a request to come back with a work plan and a suggested budget for 2027. It's direction to staff so that when we come back in November or December, we can refer back to this motion and say this board directed us to come back with a request to the new board. It's not binding the next board to anything.
Exactly. Correct.
Okay, that helps. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Director Davidoff. Director Lund, did you want to speak to this?
It was just a thought, that there might be some value in this board reviewing the work plan, and providing insights, considering we did, receive the report from the consultant. So, yeah, it's just a thought that we may want to, review the work plan and then, make a recommendation to, refer it to budget for funding. So just a consideration for the board.
Would you like to move an amendment that we change the timeline or?
Yeah, with this amendment, it's directing staff to develop a work plan that includes
Scope and budget for phase 2.
yeah, scope, budget and work plan. Did you?
I could add in, if I may.
Please go ahead.
With the pleasure of the board. I could add something like develop a work plan that includes consulting the existing board and budget for contracted services. Like if you want to put it in there. Or add further that we.
Yeah.
To the original motion.
And through the chair, if I might suggest and bring back to the board by September of 2026. Because that's kind of your last, I don't want to say meaningful meeting, but the October meeting is after the election, so there'll be some people here that might not have as much interest as they do in September.
Okay, are we all clear? Christine, are you following this?
It'd be great to get a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but the intent is that we direct staff to bring back a report about phase 2 prior to the end of this term.
So I'm just changing the date then. I'm suggesting changing the date just to September 2026 and leaving the rest of the language alone, because then that will come back to us. And further direction to be taken from there.
So read it out.
That the board directs staff to develop a work plan and budget from contracted services in S100 General Administration for the phase 2 organizational review and report back to the board by September 2026.
Okay, is that clear? Everybody online, is that clear? Yeah. Okay.
Has that been seconded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Okay,
friendly amendment.
Director Papa, please go ahead.
Can we get that email to us?
Sure.
Send it to Christine now.
Okay, so Director Page is sending to Christine, who will distribute it. Everybody online, is the sound okay? And everybody speaking? Yeah, okay. Any other discussion while we're waiting for the wording? Anybody have a guitar? I can serenade us while we. Good. Director Page, sound.
Here's some dings.
Something going around.
Oh, I haven't heard it.
Okay, so Director Page has sent it to everyone, including Christine, so that the board directs staff to develop a work plan and budget from contracted services in S100 General Admin for the phase 2 organizational review and report back to the board by September 2026. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for that. So we have, like, let's just get this one. Oh, tough room. Okay, yeah, those are for a special board. So we're on 5, we're going back in the agenda to 5.8, bylaw 3075, the 2026 through 2030 potential plan. Would somebody move to, okay, move first, second, and third reading, Director Cunningham, second. Dr. McFadden, thank you. And I should note we received two, so first of all, I just want to say, thank you to everyone for the process, for sending everything in beforehand. I think we learned some things over the past few years. We received only two, I think, changes in the past week or so, and they've already been incorporated. Yeah, okay. So yes, thank you for this relatively painless process to get to where we're at. Any discussion? Director David on.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for this new process that we're following. It's still cumbersome and complex with, for our constituents to follow, but I think this round has worked better than I have seen in quite a few years. So kudos to staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Davidoff. And I said it off the top, but again, I just appreciation to staff and thanks to Yev, our CFO, for all the great work he always does going on the Herculean tours of the region to deliver all this information. And one last plug for if you, and I appreciate the feedback, Director Davidoff, but if people have things in writing they would like to submit to the executive, I think we would encourage and appreciate that feedback. Yeah, okay. Director Yev.
No, I just wanted to make a comment for members of the public that are listening that the plan that appears in the agenda is the finalized plan with all amendments. So that's what we can expect for our taxation.
Yes.
I think that just so that it's clear for the public.
Or
Is it?
yeah, maybe
There is one last change as the revised assessments come in.
Oh, okay.
So the assessments will change slightly, which might shift a few things, but
Okay.
yes, the requisition amounts are what, assuming there's no amendments
Right.
at this point, are what will be finalized ones. Yeah.
go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Thinking of the public, as Director Hewitt pointed out, because they may find it strange we're not doing 86 little amendments. Just to observe, 2 years ago in Creston, we had 300 people attend the budget presentation with tons of questions, which were mainly federal and provincial jurisdiction. 1 year ago, we had 250 people in the same room, same issue. This year, we had 3 people in person, plus observer online. I think one, people are beginning to understand our process. 2, the earlier start help. 3, telling people, tell us what you do not want us to do. What are we going to stop doing? What are we going to eliminate? If you really want to see massive changes, we're not going to deliver the services which you have asked for over the years. And the acting board chair understated the number of changes. There were many little tweaks of $10,000 here and there that staff handled smoothly with individual directors talking to the senior manager. They were all incorporated. I think the ones that escalated more to impact everybody were the ones that were the emailed ones to make sure we're on the right page, because there's too many people impacted. So I found it a very dynamic budget session, and lots of little changes right from just before Christmas on through to now. And I still put it out to people. If you think we're doing it wrong, tell us what not to do. Tell us how to do stuff better. Ideally, put it in writing. But I think we had lots of changes and we are in a good place. The net increase this year is not CPI or less, but it is not astoundingly huge. It is, I see necessary where we've seen changes pushed onto us, federal, provincial, or just our asset management framework needing an update. That's where the major money went. So yeah, I think the public have been served well. And the fact we don't have a lot of little changes today is a reflection of it.
Thanks, Director Jackman. And I'll just note for people who have feedback, public time is at 11:45. So if you have questions, comments or questions, Stuart, did you want to respond?
No, through the chair, I think that we, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the appropriate amount of trying to change was bitten off this year, that we didn't try to do too much at once. And I've already had some conversations this week with the acting chair around what we could do for the next step. And I think bringing comms in around the budget is kind of the next phase to do it. It was suggested by the acting chair that we have something at the beginning of the budget document that kind of, Yev's presentation that talks about RUCK services, 101 on taxation, to kind of preface something before you open up a document, have a nice cover page that we designed years ago, and then you go right into a whole bunch of numbers on a page that if you're reading it for the first time, you don't have a lot of context for. So I think that's something that we can start to chip away and, like we said before, I think we said this last year, this is like a 3-4 year process to try to get this through. And I think that from a timing perspective, we didn't overtax staff this year. It definitely was tougher to get the budget in the state that it was by December, but it's not something, I heard a few stories about people being really overwhelmed at times, and we got to work on those individual cases. But broadly speaking, I'd say that we didn't put too much on staff this year.
Thanks, Stuart. Director Wendell.
Thank you through the chair. That was exactly what I wanted to hear because that was going to be my question to Stuart. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, thank you, everyone. You're back there. Thank you very much to you and your team for everything. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, first, second, third reading are passed, and I'll move adoption.
Move adoption.
Second, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Nice work, everyone. Okay, new business, community services, contract board, Castlegar District Community Complex. Is that Director Handcraft, please?
Sorry, lost the select. I'll move the motion as presented.
Thank you. So we're on 6.1.1, arena reflective ceiling, etc. Okay, second. Thank you. All waited. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And Columbia Basin Trust Project Regional Park. Who are we here?
Through the chair, we are a lot of people on this.
Want to take it, or do you want to read it?
I don't know if Tricia wants to give a little note after I read out the recommendation, because this is an interesting story. So that the board approved entering into a contribution agreement with Columbia Basin Trust Project 22602 RDCK Regional Park Enhancement Program 2026 to 2028, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents, and further that the funding be allocated to the A104 Regional Park Service budget.
Okay, anybody care to make that motion? Moved and seconded. Trish, would you like to speak to it?
Sure, thank you, through the chair. So this was a welcomed surprise, that the Columbia Basin Trust provided to us. There are some, criteria, for lack of a better word, that's in the report that identifies how that funding is supposed to be used, how it's supposed to be allocated. And we are expected to develop a work plan by June 15th, I believe is the date for the first year, which would then release a portion of funding for, from that grant to the RDCK. So we are in the process of thinking that through to figure out what that looks like and how to sort of share that across the 60% of the parks identified in the appendix of the agreement as to how we can make best use of those funds. So it is a welcomed wrinkle into our work plan, but we think we can figure out how to at least spend a large portion of that money in the district. So I think we will bring that forward back to probably the All Rec Committee is going to be the most obvious one. Not sure if that's going to be, I don't know if we will have enough time to get it there in April, but I believe there's a meeting in June and we can bring it back then so you can see what that work plan is. And then there's a subsequent work plan for year 2 that would be also required. So I will open the floor for questions.
Thank you for that. We have Director Jack now.
Yeah, thanks. So the report, too many screens open here, noted A, D, E, F, etc. Areas B and C were out of the loop in regional park status for a period of time. We now have one acquisition. There's always something irons in the fire. So just recognizing that areas B and C need to be included. If it's multi-year, I think both areas B and C will have a regional park by the time funding moves along. So just so they're not being forgotten, they just don't happen to be in the heading of the report.
So through the chair, we did inquire about that because we did feel that there were actual parks missing in that appendix. We're not 100% sure where they got that list from. We're assuming it was possibly from our website. There was concern about trying to add parks that were not yet developed. The idea was to actually provide funding specific to parks that were already here. I'm hopeful that maybe we can continue conversations with the CBT representatives and sort of see what that looks like over time. But at the time of writing the report in our initial conversations, it was very limited and strict to the actual the actual parks listed in their conservation agreement. But understood.
Okay, thank you. Director David, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we allocated $130,000 or have allocated like for Glade Regional Park in our service S222. Now with this money, I mean, it's interesting because it impacts, and I'm sure there's money allocated in other existing park budgets for this work. So when staff reviews this, will we be looking at those allocations and say, okay, well, maybe we don't need to be allocating this much money, and maybe we need to be using the CBT contribution. And I can't believe how quickly we have to do this work because like today's the deadline for submitting this. That's what according to the report. And then by May, we have to provide additional, all how we're going to allocate the money. That's my understanding. And then basically, can we then do financial plan amendments to reduce or like you get where there's a lot of confusion here. So the bottom line is that we got money, but the problem is how we're going to spend it. I guess staff's going to work that out and come back to us, but it just wish we had more lead time. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Is that a fair assessment?
Through the chair, it is a very quick turnaround. Yes, we think it's a good problem to have. But how that impacts budget, I think we weren't prepared to be able to come forward with any solid plan on what that could look like. So it would be more as we work through this process and get that first year work plan in place. Then we'll have to have that conversation at a later point in time. I don't know what that will look like, because the first year is only the first year. And then it'll come into conversation and maybe actually have more impact on the 2027 budget, more so than 2026. But it's a bit of a work in progress at this point.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. Director Hewitt.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Where's that box?
Putting on this one.
I apologize.
Director Hewitt, please go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Not wearing my CBT hat, but thinking from a CBT perspective, directly towards the question that Director Davidoff asked about amending work plans. The funding received from CBT is not to relieve the responsibilities of local government. So the way I view this is that these are things that perhaps wouldn't have happened in our normal course of work because we could not afford them for our local parks. I don't know whether we want to go amending work plans to facilitate this, because then it looks like we're removing the responsibility of government. If we're, okay, thanks for the money, we aren't gonna spend our money, we're going to spend yours. So that's the way I would view it. These are things that maybe weren't going to happen already, that these are, helping us do something that maybe was lacking in our park system. That's just my comment.
Any comment? No. Director Newell and then.
Thanks, not to be that guy, but how are you gonna be fair? Like, how are the launchable gonna get the right on that? No, I'm curious about that, the allocation side of it. Fairness, perceived fairness, and I'll just add a little bit, when we looked at our long-term capital improvements for our parks, we kind of projected it within a concept of what our capital possibilities are. And this, it seems to me, really expands the scope of that's how I would have thought of many of our parks. And so I wonder how I can be involved in the creation of the vision. in consultation with Mark and staff. So I just wondered how the people thought that the staff of not. Don't, through the chair, by the way, yes.
I was waiting for that, but.
Through the chair, I appreciate that, you think we may have had time to think that far. But, we definitely, the concept of fairness is actually somewhat built into this a little bit because it does require us to spread the funding over 60% of those parks. What it does not say is how much has to go to any particular park. So, I mean, for example, we could do capping of trails to make them accessible in every park in the district. And that could eat up a lot of funding. Or we could put an accessible picnic table in a park and do something completely different in a more established park. So it will be an interesting challenge, and I have yet to determine how many of you may be able to be involved in that. But then another question.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good feedback for, I mean, these are all notes taken. Director McFall.
Think you answered this question already with Director Newells, but just clarity. So 60% of the parks, is it, or 60% of the participants? Like, so what I mean by that is like, is there a way for you to be able to allocate that to each rec commission and then them decide like how they would want to spend that money, or it actually is 60% of each individual park on that list?
Through the chair, my understanding is each individual park. But we may be able to work with CBT on what we think makes sense for the district. Again, it's a bit challenging when we didn't make the application to really know all of the nuances and to maybe even appreciate that they would have known all of those nuances. So we have a substantial amount of work to do to try to get a work plan in for June.
Question for you, Tricia. So this work plan comes back before the board? Or no?
It does not have, through the chair, it does not have to. It would be comfortable for us to bring it to some group, which would probably be the all rec group. It's the challenge with that might be just the timing of when the submission requirement is. But I know that even like the actual signed agreement was due today, I believe, but we did ask for an extension and we wanted to bring this to the board for consideration. So we did ask if we could extend that till Monday. We will work with them to try to see if we can maybe also bring that back in a different way through some form of a committee, just so that there's some structure around this and people know how that money is being spent. It is a sizable contribution that we want to make sure we can take advantage of and certainly share across the districts.
Okay, just being mindful of that and the amount of time we're spending on this, if there's just feedback for staff, can we take it offline and give it to staff? But, and notwithstanding that, Director Jackson.
I have to do my bad humor of the day and then a serious comment. Size of the park matters, and Area A gets half the money because Crockett Creek Regional Park is massive. Several hundred acres if you include the Crown land reasons for putting it with Primo. But more seriously, we do need to talk to the trust about this mechanism, because this is the kind of debate we don't have to have. Like me first, I want this, I want that. Not an application that we would have been given a heads up on. Staff want to go out, try and get this money. We would have a logical conversation about it, proper appropriate committee. So how do we notify the trust that we really appreciate money, but this is highly disruptive to our board of the rest? Is there some way to ask them to give us a little time? I don't know if there's is it a board outreach we discuss later? Next agenda prep, or is it something staff should do? But I think the board should really talk to the trust about this is disruptive.
I think we can take that to executive and send a missive on behalf of the board. You're noted, Director Schmidt, Director Cunningham.
Yes, thank you. It seems to me that the trust had a pocket of money left over and they found a good way of doing it without giving it to the trust to use this. And I think that's a terrific idea. And I would suggest that we take it as nothing that's going to change what we're already doing. But I think every park we have could use some embellishments, whether it be paving or a trail to use so you can, use it with people who are handicapped, or whether it be extra handrails, or whether we gold plate the washrooms, whatever, understand what I'm saying. So the fact is, perhaps we just need to go back to our park commissions and say, here, look, because we have no amount of money to find that I'm aware of. So we don't have excuse me, little chair, we don't have a sum of money to find But you didn't say, well, you got your cap to 100,000, they didn't say that, did they?
No, so through the chair, what they were saying is more the criteria that how that was to be distributed across those parts. So as in that 60% of them were to receive benefit, I would call it, from through the money.
I would say that could be left up to the park commissions, and you got a bit with a wish list, because this is a chance, isn't it now? This is a chance to talk about, for example, out here, the getting rid of the potholes on the drive-in and perhaps paving that section of the parking lot, or things that we didn't have the money and don't have the money to do, could certainly be done, those kinds of things, and I have no problem, let's get at it there.
And we will surely see those recommendations from staff.
So,
Director Davidoff, I have for the second time, so I'm gonna go to a couple of the
Yeah.
speakers first. Director Schmidt, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, just a comment that I hope we don't use the wording that was directed by Director Jackman, because disruptive is the wrong terminology, in my opinion. We should have a discussion about what would make it better for both of us, opposed to this doesn't work for me. Because when someone's handing out a check that big, it's got more than 3 zeros in it, you have to say thank you and how can we make it work better?
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, and we are on to Director Tierney.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, those were my thoughts. This is a nice problem to have. I wouldn't suggest it was disruptive. Looking at the list of facilities. I think the CBT group that considered this put together a very thoughtful list of facilities that are very expensive and hard for us to afford. So I'm very impressed with the thought that's been put into this, and yeah, I think just a nice problem to have. Looking forward to helping solve how we're gonna get this done. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Director Tierney, and Director Davidoff for the second time.
Yeah, I while we were having this conversation, I think one equitable way of looking at this is coming up with a theme for staff to address, for example, or a goal. I sit on the RDCK Accessibility Committee. So if staff put their mind to accessibility in all of these parks, that would be a theme that could apply to all parks. If staff put their mind to sanitation at all of these parks, for example, compostable toilets, whatever, then we are focusing on sanitation. If staff put their mind to connectivity at all these parks where people could have access, with a Starlink satellite thing, whatever, for emergency purposes, that would be, so I would really appreciate staff looking at themes. Accessibility to me is near and dear for everyone, and because I sit on that committee, but the key thing is that we could look at it at all of these parks and to see what more can we do. We have these rubberized entryways at some parks right now in BC where wheelchair accessible into the water, which is a huge thing for our people with disabilities. So if staff could please look at a themed approach that can be equitable for all of us, and then we get out of this business of everyone fighting for their park. I think that's the approach that I would recommend, Chair, and that's why I thought I should share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Director Davidoff. And is it reasonable to ask staff to poll the directors for ideas? So if you have contributions after, you just an email theme ideas.
Through the chair, this case has literally come to us about 2.5 weeks ago. So we haven't even had time to really help guide or put a framework around that conversation. Just in the interest of saving everyone time, it might be helpful for us to have some time to think about that and then come back with a bit of a strategy on how best to manage this gift.
Okay, thank you. Director Hewitt.
Through the chair, I think it's very clearly outlined in the Schedule B Many of the things that were referenced by Director David are included in Schedule B as eligible activities. So I think we do need to let staff go away and take a look at what the eligible activities are and how it applies to each specific park, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel that they, created for us.
That's in.
Through the chair, that
reasonable?
was very fair.
Okay. Seeing, I think we have talked this enough. Talked through this enough. You wanna go through some?
No,
Oh, all the way, you're not, okay, I'm gonna call the question, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We've got a couple minutes left, let's knock off a couple more things here, before our morning break. 6.2, development and community sustainability, just for information, our emergency response and economic disruption project completion. I see Dan in the room, did anybody have, this is just for information, but did anybody have questions? Or Dan, did you want to speak to it at all, or it's a straightforward report? No, okay, I'll just say thanks to Dan for that. I attended a couple of those meetings after the last year, and they were excellent, and I think there's great opportunity, and I'll look forward to seeing what the options are. Environmental services, contract award, Erickson Water System, Director King.
Thank you, Chair. The board directs staff to award the contract for the Erickson Water System Residential Meters Installation Contract Package 1 to Valhalla Hydrovac Limited. And that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents to maximum value of $328,337 and change plus GST. And further, that the funds be drawn from S250 Water Utility Area B and C. Erickson.
Thank you, Director Tierney. Do we have a second? See you a second. Any discussion? All vote, weighted vote. Any, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And 6.4.1 contribution agreement, CBT resident directed grants funding.
I'll move that recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Director Popov. Second, Director Lund. Any discussion? All in favor? Hello. Thanks, Pete. Okay, off we go. That motion carries. And do we have time for, let's take a break. It is 10:28. Let's be back and working by 45. Ooh. We're doing great. We've already started. We're basically done. There's a break for you, a break for you. Okay, we are on 6.4.2, the alternative. I'm really gonna try not to use acronyms. The alternative approval process. Agency dangerous and aggressive dogs. Who would like to take this one?
If I might, Chair, so I want to move the recommendation, but I did confirm with Mr. Dool. The third point on here indicates the alternative approval process applies is it should read 768. That being 10% or more of the estimated eligible electors. It's a rounding issue, but I don't want someone to challenge this bylaw because if they look at the number in the report and then say, oh, that's just under 10%, that they try and derail this after years of work. So I'd like to move the recommendation as per the agenda with that one number changed to 768.
Okay, thank you, Director Jackman. We have a second. Tom noted the 768. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Anybody opposed? That motion carries. Yeah, thanks, everybody. We've already done 6.4.3. We are on to fire services. 6.5.1, I believe that is Director Hanegraaff.
I believe you're correct. So I move that the board approve the sole source purchase of one 2014 Pierce Freightliner commercial pumper from Rocky Mountain Phoenix, including required operational upgrades for a total cost not to exceed $600,000, inclusive of applicable taxes, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents, and further that the board of the Regional District Central Kootenay authorize borrowing under section 403 of the Local Government Act from the Municipal Finance Authority Equipment Financing Program for a term not exceeding 5 years to be repaid from S-145 Fire Protection Area J, Udashenia, with no rights of renewal.
Thank you. Moved, seconded.
Yes, and I'd like to speak to.
Go ahead.
So would I.
If I could, through the chair to the director, I noticed this was a 2014 pumper. Well, you don't qualify for the insurance reduction inside of a couple of years. Because the insurance reduction was only for 2015. And although I think I can beg them and they will extend. How do the underwriters feel about this, or how do they contact you? If I may, through the chair.
Dan, did you want to speak? Could you?
Thank you, through the chair. It does qualify, so it is like we can get it for the regular 20-year cycle plus additional extensions like any other frontline engine.
Okay.
That's been factored into it.
No, okay, good, thanks. No, I just want to make sure because that can be a problem sometimes. And I know departments who have done this and have, before the truck was paid for, they ran out of the insurance reduction. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Handler.
Anyway, I just want to express my appreciation to both Grant Hume and Jeff Grant for the proactive way they approach this. I think, we're not chasing around. It was thought out ahead of time, sourced ahead of time, and I think the move and being able to pay it off in 5 years all serves the community well. So I really appreciate the work they've done and the way they did it.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Yeah, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, through the chair, there's one thing that's it's mentioned in the report, but not in the recommendation that we just need to understand. We filed a notice of intent to procure this this apparatus, and that expires tomorrow. So there's a very, very slim chance that somebody may challenge it. So just to let the board understand that that expires tomorrow.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We better vote on it then. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, 6.5.2, we're gonna go to Director Schmenk, but I was gonna have a question. It says, should this be 2026?
No, through the chair, it's for last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because through the chair, the contract expired at the end of 2024. And we've been working on contract renewal through 2025. But at the same time, because the city was providing the fire protection, we were also working on what 2025's payment actually looked like. So now that this is getting closer to a resolution, we can start working on a 5-year contract that can come back to the board and have a little bit more certainty.
Thank you. Christine, can you circulate that motion, please? Yeah. So go ahead, Director.
Thank you. I'd like to move the following. That the board approve the base payment of $294,111 to the city of Nelson for providing contracted fire protection and services to defined portion of Area E under Service S-133 for the 2005 fiscal year. And further, the board directs staff to bring a report to the board that will include the following information: taxation impact history over the last 10 years, anticipated increase in costs that have been indicated by the city of Nelson for future taxation implications, steps required to increase taxation limits for Service S-133, consult with the Blewett Fire Chief and investigate the possibility of expanding that fire protection service to cover a portion or all of defined area protection covered by Service S-133, boundary options to include with or without a satellite hall. in consultation with Director for Area E, I would gather information that would be required for a public meeting, which would show tax implications and options for the residents of the service area for S-133 to consider and provide input on.
Okay, so Christina circulated that motion. Do we have a second?
There's a question,
Okay.
if I might, should this not have division? The one is a clean financial plan, which I see that is the correct number in the current budget we're looking at, 294,111. It's a standalone motion, and then the other is a separate motion, much cleaner.
Yeah. So process wise, should we second this and then divide it, or?
Call for division at any time.
Through the chair, you can't call for division anytime. That being said, the mover could simply move the first portion as a separate motion and then address the second portion.
If the mover agrees, I would just move the first part of the motion.
Okay. Okay, so we have the financial piece.
I will second that.
Second, okay.
Piece.
Yeah. Any discussion on that portion of the issue?
Well, just confirming that is in fact the exact number in the financial plan that we just approved, so there's no retroactive. That's
Right, it's the right number. Okay, any other discussion on that piece? Online? Nothing? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, that carries. So then,
process question on the second one, that would not necessarily be all vote weighted, it would be PO, or
through the chair, it would be
PO would become all vote.
PO becomes all vote. It's a single service, operation administration of a service. Yeah.
Yeah, just
PO would be appropriate, or sorry, all vote.
yeah. So this is an all vote. Okay. Does anybody need the motion read out a second time? It should all be emailed to you if you'd like to see the details. But we have, thank you, move. Let's say you move the second motion. We have a second. Director McFadden. Any questions or discussion? We need to take a minute to read it through. Stuart, did you want to comment at all?
No, chair, I'm good.
Okay, Director Page.
Okay, I know that there are some changes with our Nelson's Fire Master Plan and the expectation that we will be building a new fire hall that necessitates us really thinking about capital expenditures and how the 9.7%, what portion of the assessed value will be contributing to those capital expenditures. I know from a discussion with staff at the city side that there's been some agreement around an adjusted apportionment between Nelson and Blewett, which comes out to a number of about 9.7 of those capital pieces. So the only thing that I see, this is very detailed in terms of what's expected, and the only thing I would say to strengthen it is Nelson would be very interested over this 10-year period of understanding the capital investments that have happened. And there's been apparatus, there's been improvements into the actual building itself. So I would say that tax impact history piece could also include a look at the expenses that have been incurred to deliver the service. I think that would round it out. That would be considered friendly.
I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah. Okay. And otherwise, I think everything that's here is what was postulated in option 7 of the report by staff already. So if this just makes it clearer and is more comfort for the partners to consider, then I have no objections. Just adding in capital expenses to that 10-year review.
Okay, so we're clear on, Christine, was that clear? Okay, everybody, does anybody not know where we're at? We're just adding capital expenses to that first item, the 10-year taxation impact history. Okay.
Great.
Yes.
I think it adds to what the director and the director and myself have spoken about on this particular issue. It's just simply, we want to make sure that all the information is available for the people of that service area to make a decision, because it's big dollars. The last 2 years, that service has already had an increase in costs of 45%. And, that could be doubled again. And so I think when taxation happens to that much change, that it's good for us as an organization to be prepared and to be able to present that to the public in a clear manner.
Yeah. Absolutely agreed. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. Okay, let us move on to grants. I am going to assume that everybody has reviewed their grants and everything is represented accurately. Would somebody like to move the discretionary grant recommendations? Director Hendegraff, second Director Kearney. Any notes, comments, discussion? Director McKellar?
Just a question, we had put forward to support the 1,500 for, on the original motion, we had put forward to support 1,500 for the Kootenay mountain biking. If Area G also supported, but we noticed that Area G didn't. Just curious what happens with that motion without that support.
If I think we're talking about community development grants.
Oh,
For
are we
one,
not,
well, let's just deal with discretionary grants.
oh, I skipped.
I see 1,500 for Village of Salma under community development. I don't see a review, but we can talk about that after. Anything on discretionary? Director Stein.
Sorry, community development.
Okay.
Yeah, myself.
All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And yes.
I just like to declare that I, Director Smith, graciously declare that I am at this time not entitled to participate in the discussions or vote on the next item of business on the meeting agenda. That is item 6.6.2 by reasons of me being on a committee of one of the beneficiaries. And that I wish to leave this meeting at this time to request that the minute record my leaving the meeting for those reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. Don't go very far. Okay, can I have a mover for 6.6.2? Thank you, Director Hewitt. Second, Director Hendegraff and Director McKellar.
Yeah, so same question. There was a motion originally that we would support this $1,500 grant if Area G also supported it. So we noticed that Area G hadn't. So we're just wondering what happens with that motion that was put forward since we didn't meet the.
That was a good question. Can I you for the chair? Was it a board motion? It wasn't passed here. Was that a council motion?
That's a good question.
So I don't remember seeing a motion through the chair. I don't remember seeing a motion here. I'm not sure if Director Cunningham got notification of that motion, but that would be between the council and the area director. So I think
I couldn't hear them. I couldn't hear what you said.
Just that, and it may have been a council motion, but I'm not 100% sure. Just that we had decided to support this $1,500 grant just with the understanding that Area G would also support. So yeah, just
Area G is supporting. It's just not listed here. It should be on next month's post.
Oh, okay. Great. And
thanks to the chair, but thank you. Satisfied with that explanation? All right. Director Kearney.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to point out there are quite two large community development contributions from Area B in Yak and in Kitchener. Just wanted to point out that Columbia Basin Trust is has two projects on the go, close to $1 million each in each of those communities, and through discussions and wanting to support them, they were looking for us to have some skin in the game, and that's why a large contribution from community development.
Okay, explain that. Thank you for contextualizing that. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, community development grants are carried. Then a couple of pages here. Chair and CEO reports. Well, I've been acting chair for a few days and I've done nothing as acting chair other than be here. So I will, other than keep my phone turned on at night. But I'll just, if we get to director's reports, I'll talk then. So that's it for me.
Yeah. For the chair, the only thing I want to update the board on is we are watching the precipitation, and today was kind of a tipping point in terms of whether we would open up the EOC to a level 1 for monitoring. I haven't heard from Dan, have we done that yet? but it could come later in the day. And thankfully, every day this goes on, it seems to be looking better where it didn't quite get to the levels of participation originally in the forecast. So hopefully things will just go smooth, but we are watching that rain on snow, especially up higher.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. And sorry, Director, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back.
Yes, Director Smink has returned to the room, perhaps.
Yes, thank you for acknowledging. Any questions for either of us? All right, moving on. Rural affairs. I'll turn it over to Director Chen.
Thank you. So yesterday, held rural committee meeting, of course. We had 7 recommendations to board. Resulting from the business items, as always, we were authorized to delegate authority to receive delegation on land use issues. We also received the delegation from WildSafe, specifically to help us understand the rural admin S101 contribution to that program. And just as a heads up, we did discuss an agenda prep that perhaps we should have WildSafe come back and present to the entire board because their funding structure is quite complex. But yesterday we wanted reassurance for at least the rural communities where our contribution is going to. So from yesterday, the first recommendation I'd like to move is the WildSafe BC funding proposal. This is funding from electoral areas only. So I want to move the board approve the RBCK extend into a goods and services agreement with the BC Conservation Foundation for the WildSafe program for the period April 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2028, as written in the addenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I see a couple seconds. Any discussion? It was a good, we had a robust chat yesterday at Rural Affairs. That's it. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
And I should have noted, of course, that's all vote. Second and third recommendation, I'd like to move as a block. They are both all vote. They are both notice on title. They're both in area A. One is for property owner May. The other one is for property owner Rain. So I'd like to move those two, placing notice on title as a block.
You're gonna move second discussion. Seeing none, all votes, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
The fourth item is electoral area H, McNabb, and I want to move the corporate officer be authorized to remove the notice on title on the property as described.
Dr. Pfeffer, the second, and discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
Fifth item is a development variance permit, Johnstone in electoral area I. I'd like to move the board approve the issuance of a development variance permit, B 2507I to Stacy Johnstone for the property as described.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Sixth recommendation is a temporary use permit, Markham electoral area F, and this is just a notification process. So I move the board direct staff to provide notification of the board's intention to consider temporary use permit application P 2601F by Dan Markin for the property as described. All vote.
Director Noel. Second, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the last one, hopefully, unlike last month, this is application for subdivision in the agricultural land reserve, landowner Weeb, electoral area B. So these move that the board support the application A2601B for the proposed subdivision in the ALR proposed by John Purdy for the property located as described.
Second, Director Tierney, any discussion? Any online? No one, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. That's it. Thank you, Rural Affairs Chair. Director Davidoff, are you prepared to speak to your motion?
Yes, Chair, I am, and I just will focus on the resolution part for the reasons for the whereases are very clearly stated. So my motion is that the Union of BC Municipalities requests that the province of British Columbia formally recognize that in rural and compact communities without alternate transportation corridors, provincially owned highways function as active transportation infrastructure. And further, be it resolved that the province review and, where necessary, adjust rural highway maintenance standards to reflect multimodal use and ensure safe conditions for pedestrians, cyclists, mobility device users, and other vulnerable road users, and the province collaborate with rural and regional district governments to develop practical, jurisdictionally appropriate solutions that ensure equitable transportation safety outcomes between urban and rural communities. And if there's a second there, I just have a few comments to make.
Okay, so we have a second in the room. Go ahead, Director Deva.
Yeah, so I looked at this, and this is in particular to do with chip seal coating and how it degrades the existing active transportation networks in communities like Sure Acres, for example. And the inequitable treatment where one compact community has paved road service that enhance the existing transportation infrastructure, but in a community like Sure Acres, the province intentionally went and degraded the very much utilized active transportation network in that community. Degradation is not an option. And then sending a letter to us saying, from the ministry saying, well, if you want an active transportation network in Sure Acres, local government should pay for it and develop it itself. So basically, this is so unfair. And the one thing that when you degrade something, you should be held accountable for that. And right now, the ministry sets its standard for chip seal coating, goes ahead and does this in some communities that rely on this active transportation corridor, and then just say, well, we did it to our standard. So I'm ready to hold the inaugural chip seal games where we're going to invite ministers to come and a minister for rural development and our MLAs, and have try maybe doing something like 100-meter walking down one of these road services as a visually impaired person, and see how long they go without stumbling on the sharp rocks. I'd like to invite them to play a ball hockey game on this surface, or a basketball game. You get the point. Or even pushing a stroller down this and having try to go 50 meters, pushing a stroller with a doll in it, because you never put a baby in that stroller. So I'm sorry for the emotion. This is really, like, I know I just did an interview with Kootenay Co-op Radio that is available, but it's just so unfair. And let's stop being treated like poor country cousins. This would never happen in an urban environment. So I urge the directors to support this recommendation, this UBCM recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for the background there, Director Davidoff. I have Director Page.
Thanks, Director Davidoff, for putting together this really good motion that speaks to the issues in our rural transportation network. It is vast and spreads across the entire province. On the timing of this, given that good resolutions go through the muster of area associations, and only when we really need to bring something to UBCM do we send it directly, and they're pretty explicit that it be something that is urgent and a last resort, but that the direction really is to go through area associations. At present, I don't support this resolution, but I would certainly entertain it for next year's resolution process through the area association, so we can come together, talk about this, see where there's other opportunities to improve and then take it forward to UBCM in 2027. But in principle, it's a fine thing to advocate for.
Thanks, Director Page.
Chair, can I respond to that?
Let me just go through the speakers list
Okay,
and then
thanks.
we'll get you to close, Director Taylor. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I do sympathize with the issues of chip sealing, and one of my close family members sure noticed when Lodge Road and Crawford Creek Road were chip sealed. It was an extraordinarily rough surface and for cycling, let alone anything else. The actual resolution, therefore, be it resolved, doesn't talk or speak to chip sealing if that's the issue. There's catch-22 here, though. Chip seal coating is used to slow the deterioration of the pavement between overlays or hot-in-place recycling. It reduces the moisture infiltration. That reduces frost heaving. If you don't chip seal on the 5 or 10 year cycle and you don't have a budget to pay, you will find you will have more potholes. For frost heave, you will have more alligator cracking or tertiary cracking. The pavement will be less safe, less walkable if it's allowed to deteriorate to its full end of life. So chip seal has a place, a time and place. The approach maybe should be more in terms of how it's applied, whether it's two applications or even 3, and whether there's a smaller aggregate used. And I think we found we gained traction with the ministry over the decades and had a change to the aggregate size for winter road aggregate, where they reduced the aggregate size, and that did reduce the chips in windshields and the flying larger rocks and debris and the like. So to me, to discount a method of deferring complete overlays and letting the pavement get completely the end of life versus talking about, is there a different way to use that methodology, chip seal, in terms of aggregate size, 2 or 3 layer applications, maybe a time frame in between, although mobilization is an issue, you can get a better end product. So this kind of conversation should really start with our area manager, regional manager of highways, I think. A lot of lead work we could do, get some understanding as to whether or not they are framing their ask of the ministry for capital project funding properly. Maybe we should do something different here than is done just across the job. So to me, that is the starting point. I do agree with Director Page. It'd be nice if this thing was a regional conversation, because we all have similar roads that are not overlaid for 20 years or more.
Okay, thanks, Director Jackman. Director Popov.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and through the chair, similar to what Director Jackman has mentioned, but I understand Director Dave has exhausted every opportunity to work with the local ministry to resolve that issue. And with what Director Page mentioned is it carries more weight if it goes through our local government association. I've taken resolutions directly to UBCM, and they're if not supported by your local government, it's harder, or I should say, it's more difficult to get approval from the convention for that resolution. So that's my comments on this.
Thank you, Director Popov. Director Kane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And not knowing the degree of finishing work that Director David Opp is dealing with, I just want to say that definitely what Director Jackman is commenting on as far as extending the life to the point where it can be surfaced again is extremely important to extend the life, potholes, etc., as you mentioned. But to me, the motion speaks more at asking that the Ministry of Transportation and Transit to cooperate wherever possible for providing an active transportation route on their primary and secondary routes, a much more affordable option for creating active transportation routes than creating a whole other trail with all the difficulties of land procurement, etc. So I would support the motion for that reason alone.
Thank you for that. Director Cunningham.
The intention of the motion is to forward the motion to UBCM. That's what the motion is. So that we should be speaking as to whether it should be forwarded or not. Is that correct?
I've noted that it's directing UBCM to do something. So I think what we should maybe, Director David, we could make a friendly amendment that our board, contacts UBCM to do the follow.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think that should be included, the fact that this resolution will be forwarded to UBCM. Or perhaps, and I'm not sure, if it's not too late for AKBLG, I would suggest they go there first. Because that's the normal way.
Yeah, it's too late for AKBLG, and this wouldn't be an emergency resolution. But I don't think, and Director David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this is for the resolution process so much as just an advocacy piece. Am I correct about that?
Okay, so just on process, I did reach out a month ago to make this an AKBLG resolution, to have it on the agenda a month ago. And I was informed that I couldn't do that because AKBLG deadline had passed. That was a month ago. And we weren't even registering for AKBLG, and already the resolution deadline had passed. So that's what happened process-wise. So basically, I couldn't submit it to our board for AKBLG to consider in accordance with the advice I received and from the current chair. So then the only other option was a motion to UBCM, and which is what I've done process-wise. In terms of exhaustion, the number of letters back and forth with the ministry on this is unbelievable. And the response has been incredibly frustrating. We know that chip seal coating works in certain applications on major rural highways. That's not what this motion's about. This motion is about what happens within a compact community like a Acres, where that what's there shouldn't be chip seal coated. It should be repaved just the way it's been done in every single area of my community. So this isn't talking to the ministry about the use of smaller aggregate or anything else. They had some potholes, they had a few cracks, so they go and they chip seal with huge, in a way that degraded everything. The other part is that this costs 25% of what it costs to repave. So I asked, is this a cost-cutting measure? Because you repaved Glade, you repaved every other road in Area I, but you didn't do it here.
So I think we have the.
So basically, I think you got the gist. But if this isn't moved forward to UBCM, my community would be incredibly frustrated to say now the local RDCK board is opposed to moving this forward when we were blocked from moving it to KBLG, which we probably could have done as a late resolution.
Okay, for context, I gave you that information a month ago because it was prior to, it wasn't, the deadline for AKBLG resolutions was in the middle of February. So that would have had to have come to the January board meeting to be ratified by the board to then go to AKBLG in terms of their deadlines. So we were well past the time to do it. I think blocked is a mischaracterization. There are timelines and these happen every year. So it's not a new thing. And just for clarity, it's not worded as such, but do we want to friendly amend this to that, just so it's clear if it's supported that it goes to UBCM as a resolution? Because I don't read that in the current motion.
Yeah, I asked for advice on this chair as well, so it's there as a resolution to UBCM. I will take the advice of the chair as to any way we can move this forward to UBCM. I would support as a friendly.
Okay. Can we capture that, Christine? Okay, thank you. So we're all clear on that's the intent. We have no more speakers, so let's call the question. Or sorry, no, Director Gunn.
Yeah, I have spoken to, I asked a couple of questions and they were answered.
Yeah, okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We have a few opposed. Okay. Thank you for bringing it to us, Director Davidoff, and we will send it up to UBCM.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the board's support.
All right, moving on, consent agenda. What?
I would like to briefly, I'd like to pull 9.2 forward.
Director Weatherhead. And Director Weatherhead, which item?
9.2.
Oh, wow, popular. Hey. Okay, which one is that? Oh, Infonet. Okay, any other?
Yeah, Chair, 9.2.11.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll start with Director Jackman.
Okay. Hopefully this will help answer some of Director Weatherhead's questions. This letter, of course, was to Board Chair Watson, but also as Director Watson for the area of specific interest. So been promised, but I think I inferred that if there's a really big conversation about casual infonet, maybe it'd be when she's able to be back. But in general, Director Popoff and I have been involved in the connectivity committee for some time. So I just wanted to note that City West, the entity which will incrementally be moving in to take on the ownership and operation of the backbone and this infrastructure that Columbia Basin Broadband is developing, will meet with each regional district. They have intention to ask to be a delegation at every regional district, so you can put the very specific questions straight to them. Director Popoff and I already had a one-on-one with their CEO, their head of the technical and marketing person, I believe. We had 3 of their senior staff and Director Popoff and I only. On a Zoom call, Director Popoff was a little more organized with me, with his questions. We went through these items as Castle Infonet raised. They told us they had already spoken to Kin, and they've talked to every one of the ISPs that they will become partners with essentially, and they will be picking up service agreements as the transition occurs. And that based on the specific concerns we raised, we're going right back to Kin to have another conversation. So these conversations are in the works. My view is Columbia Basin Broadband Corp did not state that they intended to forever be the owners and operators of infrastructure. In fact, at one time, there's conversation, maybe local government should own this stuff. Fiber optic cables, which I thought was a scary proposition because we are not in a good position. And there were discussions about other entities taking over this network over the course of time. And Columbia Basin Broadband has landed on this entity to take it over. So when they come as a delegation, I think they will, one, answer all the questions they can within the time allocated, and then be absolutely willing to speak one-on-one as they have with Director Popoff and I already.
Sure. Next on the list is Director Weatherhead.
Yeah, I think that the importance of keeping local revenues strong is very much at the heart of my concerns about this, and Kin is not alone in these concerns. They're not the only one, and it has been stated that, you know, the operations seem quite opposite of how CBBC was, and yet all of our correspondence and questions and these services that moved in organically over time and began serving the underserved in this time frame that we have waited for and put, you know, community works funding toward, was, you know, the communications with CBBC were very much supportive of these ISPs growing their businesses and helping them support the infrastructure that was already in place and you know, and pairing and all of these things. And I've spent quite a number of, like, a lot of time on this anyway. So these valleys, they've served, you know, the 3 major valleys of the central Kootenay here. And you know, there is concern that if City West takes the larger piece of the pie and divides the pie into smaller allowances for revenue growing of our local businesses, that it could feasibly bankrupt some of our very, very valuable ISPs. One that I am particularly interested in keeping would be the 27 towers of Columbia Wireless Inc. as a local company that is serving a great number of my underserved, which if they had the backbone of the, to add to it, but I don't want to see City West take 90% of the revenues and only allow our local ISPs for 10%. And so I am very concerned about actions that appear harmful in things that have been stated. And so obviously these ISPs will all be having consultation with City West. But I'm concerned if there's a viable rationale that supports the need for all actively successful local ISPs to provide their collective voice on self-advocacy. And I'd like, us all as colleagues to be aware that we do need to pay attention to this.
Okay, thank you for that, Director Weatherhead. I have a few speakers, but Pop Up and Lana, are you speaking on this item?
Yes.
Okay, let's keep to this item, then David, I'll over to you after. Pop Up, go ahead.
Yeah, just to expand what Director Jackman mentioned, we did meet with them, and I had basically a similar question that you had. They assured us that they would run the network similar to what Columbia Broadband Corporation was going to run. But having heard them say that, we have invited them to come as a delegation and have each director here that is underserved or served by another ISP provider, that they're not going to go out there and try to undercut them, just like exactly what you mentioned. And it'd be best, rather than hearing from us, to have him or City West come here and answer your questions directly hopefully to your satisfaction. So that's the intent of it.
Director Cunningham, was it on?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I know that of course the provider is in fact a municipally operated company. So it stays basically within local government, but I like the idea of a professional operation, and I know the trust has tried their best, but they are not professionally operators. They were professionally builders and money suppliers and all sorts of things, but not operators. And I'd also like to note that a few months ago, we had one of our small ISPs where the motion was to drop what they were doing, and in fact, it was taken over by TELUS. And TELUS, of course, is a money-making operation, and as a result, you know what happens when you hook up with TELUS. It's great right now, but the fees go up and up and up because they're in business to make money, not to operate it for the public trust or the public good. I like what is happening, and from the point of view, I like the idea of professional operation. I like the idea of being able to have the same kinds of things as we were having with the trust, so we'll get that kind of oversight. And I of course, and I agree with the previous directors that we need to be able to talk to them and have any qualms that we may have, taken care of.
Okay, thanks, Director Cunningham. I have a few more speakers, noting there's no motion here. This is just, we could discuss at length here. Director Munn, 5.4.2.
Sure, yeah, so I've heard that City West is coming as a delegation. Just want to make the comment though that the announcement, there's been so much local government advocacy for the application for grants for the infrastructure, CBBC, and it's years of advocacy to be able to apply, and there was a sense of trust and partnership with CBBC. I know that we have a couple of representatives on the committee, but for the rest of us, I received an email 4 hours before there was a press release to the public about this transfer, and it's pretty significant. So I'm curious if the board might be interested in a delegation from CBBC as well, or if that would be appropriate, just to better understand their methodology, or also to have a venue for some dialogue about how we got to here. Because yes, it is a municipal entity, but it's not a municipal entity within our region, and it's a huge sale of such a an incredible local infrastructure. There was a lot of potential. Yeah, and I know likely folks here have or the folks who are on the committee have, it was in camera. They probably have a better understanding of how we got to this point, but as a local government representative who's sort of been advocating right up to the last intake for infrastructure grant funding, it really caught me off guard, and I would like to hear more from CBBC.
So
I would entertain a motion directing staff to request CBBC attend as a delegation to the board on this matter.
okay, so we have
There's
a
a
motion
seconder.
on the floor. Second. We have a second. We have a speakers list, but speaking to this motion. Director Page.
Okay, I'm gonna speak in opposition of this motion because I would move a motion to formally engage with Columbia Basin and City West around the binding shared governance framework that is requested in this letter, and I would speak to that. So I want to go beyond just, I don't need to hear from them. I need to make a request that we develop that shared governance piece as the letter states has happened in other areas, and I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I could withdraw. Yeah, it's just more dialogue as well.
Right. You approve that as a second, the withdrawal of that motion?
I didn't understand what,
Okay, so Director Lynn was requesting that we get a delegate, we request a delegation from CDBC. And that, and you seconded that. Director Page suggested that we go beyond that and request
shared governance.
There you go, shared governance.
Is that line in the letter?
Okay, so he'd like to go further. So in light of that, Director Lynn wants to withdraw her motion so that we can make a new motion with a larger scope.
Okay.
You're okay with that? Okay. So we have a motion, second, speaking to this motion.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. Now that I'm an old man, in my previous career before I came to the Kootenays, I worked for one of North America's first DSL providers that eventually got bought up through acquisition through TELUS. Coming here and noticed the same thing with NetIdea. It is a very prudent concern that Kin is raising now, that fee structures and priority access to resolution are the tools that can slowly eat away at an independent operator over time until they are no longer sustainable. The letter outlines clearly that City West has established some sort of shared governance model in other areas where it has service area. And I think because we put some of our financial resources towards building this network, that is a prudent and necessary ask that we put forward now, that we get that kind of shared framework so that when these decisions around access, around priority for resolution, around fee setting happen, there is a local body somewhere that can be discussed, and then in that way we can protect these operators that have developed over time and created such value for our communities. So that would be the request that I make, is that we request formally from Columbia Basin Trust and City West to establish binding governance framework for broadband infrastructure.
Okay.
And all the workshopping and discussions that will come from that will, I think, capture what Director Listen was wanting to see too.
Christine, you got that captured?
Yeah.
Okay. Director Cunningham.
Yeah, just one last question, if I may. Is this run by, is this under the aegis of BCUC, the BC Utilities Commission? In other words, do they need? Because it is a utility in a way, isn't it? And I mean, I know the BC Utilities Commission regulates such things as television and radio and all those other things. Is it, pardon? ABC or DC? Yeah.
I can
go ahead, Director Crawford.
Yeah, I can probably answer that. This is a federal jurisdiction. It's not a provincial jurisdiction. It's a CRTC, and their affiliates provide the direction on telecommunications.
Very good, thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Okay, we have a duly moved and seconded motion. Any more discussion?
I just like to speak in favor of the motion because the other component of our local ISPs are providing far more service that is over and above what they are actually just doing. For instance, providing free CBC radio to a very large area. in my jurisdiction, so, for free. So it's really important that there is local voices on this, and that we are advocating for, revenue to be stay within our own jurisdictions, and outside to another municipalities' jurisdictions. I'm very concerned about that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Director Handraff, I had your name on the list. Do you want to speak to this or?
No,
Maybe you're scratching your head.
Scratching my head.
Okay. Okay, so no more speakers. All in favor? Any opposed?
A quick comment. Sorry, just quick, friendly directive to staff that, the portion on the request of that this is done before the first phase of the transfer closes is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just for the letter.
For the timing of this, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you got timing? Okay. Okay, thank you for that robust discussion. Director Davidoff, thank you very much for your patience. We're on 9.2.11.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and really appreciate the letter being sent again to the Minister of Transportation and Transit. And in response to the perfunctory letter response to our community's extended community's request. And thank you in that letter for pointing out that that there was a ferry stakeholder advisory established at the time of privatization of ferries, and basically that group could potentially have that automatic standing to represent effective communities at the LRB. But at meetings with ministers, none of the seniors at the UBCM convention in 2025, none of the senior staff in the room were aware of either the history or intent of these advisory committees. So hopefully another issue impacting our community in our RD, our communities in our RD. And thank you, staff, for how you have created this letter, and that has been sent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Davidoff. That wraps up the consent agenda. Or sorry, any questions on accounts payable? 9.3. No questions. So we're 5 minutes from public time. I've got a straw poll for the room. We only have directors' reports and our closed meeting to go through. Do you want to work through lunch and be done around 1? Or do you want to break for lunch and come back and do the afternoon? Or through?
Work till 12:30.
I mean, the other question too, director's reports are kind of optional. It's lovely to share. I always actually advocate for them, but if you'd rather we call a short day, then that's fine too. Up to the table. Power through.
I like a short day.
Yeah.
Can we take a 5-minute break right now, waiting for public time?
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, be back and ready to go in 5 minutes. In 4, 3:50 seconds, and then I'll start banging into things, yeah. You can hear us online. Your thumbs up, not a heads up. Okay, welcome back from a short break. We are gonna go to public time. I'll start online. Is there anybody online? I see a hand up, number 3416. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Deb Randall from Area J. I just wanted to say something briefly about the budget, and really more about the attendance at the budget. I think we all know it was pretty minimal, and I think it's important that lack of attendance not be construed as approval of the budget. This budget's not an AAP. RDCK residents, like all Canadians, they're in survival mode. I think you're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Desperate people, they don't attend poorly advertised local government meetings. They sit at home and they worry about how they're going to pay their mortgages and how they're going to pay their bills. I think we all heard the statistic recently that 50% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. It's not going to get any better. I think we can all agree with that. Recently, I don't know if you heard, but the Canadian Human Rights Commission declared that the current economy is a human rights crisis. The economy. People are desperate, and the Human Rights Commission has confirmed it. Even in the RDCK back in 2022, there was the energy audit, and a third of the RDCK residents in 2022 were living in energy poverty. I can only imagine what that figure is like right now, like if it was that in 2022. So my question to the board is, will it put its fiduciary responsibility as its number one priority in this year, in the year going forward? And by that, I mean, will each director look at their community works funds and their other grants, and with the priority of reducing taxes, say no to more parks, say no to more rec programs, say no to more services. We don't need dog bylaw service. Dog bylaw is okay, but not another service, not more staff, not more expenses. So my question is, will the board consider really an austerity program? Look at the mayor of Vancouver, look at your fellow municipal directors and the regional directors pushing against the government, against their housing acts. Take those proactive steps to say no. Don't chase grants. You guys are led around the nose by grants. Grants don't exist on an island. They always lead to some expenses down the road. So that's my question.
Okay, thanks for the question, Deb. There's a lot in there. I think, as we've noted today and at other meetings over the past several months, that both staff and directors have been trying to sharpen their pencil as much as we can. And I forget who said it today, but it's slightly more than an inflationary or CPI raise, but everything's becoming more expensive, and that's no different for local government services. Everything costs more. So it's if we're going to provide the same level of service, then just by virtue of inflation and diesel on the way in when I drove in this morning was $2.14 a liter. So unfortunately we're not immune to those cost increases. And I appreciate your perspective. There are some services that some people disagree on, and we're doing our best to represent the people who have asked for the services that they've asked for, while also trying to maintain a level of fiscal responsibility. And just one other quick response is the advocacy piece. I think it's not as visible as some of the other work we do, but I can guarantee you that there is a whole heck of a lot of advocacy, going on behind the scenes. I just know for myself, I'm the advocacy chair for the Association of Kootenay Bound Local Governments. Director Page and I are both on the Union of BC Municipalities Executive. Director Hewitt is on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board. There is a lot of advocacy going on, and trust me when I say that we don't care for the downloading from the province and other quarters of government. So we're doing our best to fight back against a lot of the costs that are foisted upon us by that we have no choice over. So I hope that helps. I'm going to go to the room. Gentlemen, did you have questions? Okay, come on up and ask your question. Just your name and your general area of residence and what your question is.
I'm Dave Lang, a resident of the Rosebud Lake area, south of Salmo near the Delaware border crossing. And we have a proposed resolution for the board that we're asking for political support for the creation of a ecological reserve and a protected area in the forest around that feeds Rosebud Lake and Loman Lake. And so I have the proposed resolution here, and I'm just wondering, I could read it out.
You could, Director Cunningham, your area?
I'm familiar with the proposal. And I appreciate the difficulty is in Rosebud Lake, as you know, is part of Area G that does have zoning. But however, there's land being logged above where the watershed is into the area of Rosebud Lake where many of the residents live. And as a result, their wells are dropping and the surface water is becoming less and less. And it's a difficulty. And I think the intention is to do something about trying to preserve the rest of the area from being logged in order to stop a complete water catastrophe. And I think that's the purpose of the resolution. I have not seen the resolution purposely, but I know Dave has been is a retired chair of my APCC, so he's well aware with the thing, and I believe it was Dave that initiated the Rosebud Lake community to impact adopt zoning as part of Area G. And so I know he's thinking for the best. He has the best interest of the community at heart. My suggestion, indeed, if we could, Chair, is you could have him read it if you wish, or in fact, what we could do is received and put on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you, Director Cunningham. And I would say, I mean, if it's relatively short, please read it just to inform us, and then we can do as Director Cunningham.
Pretty short. Okay. So this is a proposed resolution for consideration by the board. And it reads, whereas the watersheds of Rosebud Creek and Loman Creek near Nelway support wildlife, forests, and local residents and farms with life-sustaining water for domestic and agricultural purposes. And as they provide recreational opportunities for communities throughout our region by supplying critical source water for both Rosebud Lake Regional Wildlife Park and Loman Lake. And whereas this is an opportunity to protect critical important wildlife habitat and these sustainable water sources for future generations by converting our environmental reserve from our OCP to an ecological reserve, and by asking the province to designate these watersheds as protected area. Therefore, be it resolved that the Regional District of Central Kootenay support the community by recommending to the province that they designate these watersheds as an ecological reserve and protected area for future generations to enjoy and to protect the ecological diversity of these critical watersheds. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Rosebud Community Watershed Protection Group. And we've had positive indications from the province that there's a good chance that they could proceed with this if we can demonstrate public support for it. So that's what we're asking for.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've heard that, and I think Director Cunningham has identified a good way forward. We can take it as an informal notice of motion for next month's meeting. Director Tierney, do you want to move on?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the ecological reserve aspect of your proposal. An ecological reserve is a provincial designation, and the regional director for water, land, and resource management, Tennessee Trent, lives here in Nelson, and may be a good person to contact with your suggestion of an ecological reserve. Okay. I could give that to you in an open.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate that. Thank you. We can do that offline. Thank you very much. Sir, please.
My name is Thomas Nixon. I'm the current chairman of the APC for Area G, and I would like to speak in support of Dave's request and remind the board that even though you have no jurisdiction over Crown land, that's no excuse for not trying to offset the absolute power that the forest ministry and the local forest, whatever you would call them in Cranbrook, have over Crown land. We really question the whole title of provincially owned land as Crown land. Of course, the Crown lives in England. We all live here. And maybe it should just be called forest ministry land, because they seem to have absolute power over it, and they do not abide by any consultations with the public. The only resource that the public has is local government, and you are the local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, that's everybody in the room. Anybody else online? Okay, thank you everyone for your questions. We are going to, I've had some feedback about just working through. Does anybody really want to go for lunch? Or can we power through this? Please go. Okay, work through. So my second question is,
Table.
directors' reports. Do we have a burning desire to do that?
I'll move to
Refer them?
refer them.
Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I'll just go opposed for the Johnson Davis. Okay, so those are referred till next month, and I believe I will take a motion to close the meeting to the public.
No move.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, so thank you, everybody. We have a lovely day. Everybody online. We will see you next time. Cameras. Yeah, cameras on, please, for everybody who's staying. Yeah.